Incredible rescue. Discover the heartwarming journey of a dog saved from a hidden steel grave. In the small town of Maplewood, news traveled fast. Whispers spun stories that painted a vivid picture of a miraculous rescue. An abandoned dog, trapped in a forgotten steel grave near the old factory, had ignited a spark of hope among the townsfolk. They all gathered, eyes brimming with compassion, ready to partake in a narrative that breathed life into their worn-out spirits. Sarah stood outside the diner, her flat shoes gripping the cracked pavement as sunlight glinted off the windows. Life hadn't been kind after losing her husband 2 years ago, but every day she fought to create a sense of normalcy for her spirited children, Lily and Jake. Despite working 2 exhausting jobs, the laughter of her kids filled their modest home, chasing away the shadows that loomed over their lives. Yet, even she felt the weight of loss crushing her chest, a reminder that joy was often eclipsed by pain. When Jake and Lily discovered the trapped dog, it wasn't just a cry for help, it resonated with something deeper within Sarah. It was a call to arms, a chance to reclaim a fragment of her heart that had been lost. In that moment, she watched her children, wide-eyed and determined, their laughter turning into encouragement as they plotted their plan to save the pup. "Mom! We need to help him!" Jake exclaimed, his small hands clenching into fists. "Yeah, we can't just leave him there," Lily added, her voice a bright beacon amid the gray skies of concern. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As news of the rescue spread, Sarah sought allies among their neighbors. At the town hall meeting, tensions erupted. Tom, the factory owner with decades of history in the town, stood firm, his voice booming against the cries of desperate mothers and worried fathers. "Sometimes we have to let things go," he grumbled, his brows knitted together in stubborn resolve. But Sarah stood her ground, heart pounding. "We can't turn our backs when something needs us." Her voice quaked, yet there was a fire that ignited in the community, urging them to reconsider their priorities. As town members exchanged glances, she saw hesitation. For a fleeting moment, empathy slipped in, hinting at a possible coalition shaped by compassion. The rescue event came together, but divisions ran deeper than expected. Those who chose heart over convenience began to grapple with the community's entangled issues of pride and buried truths. Just as uncertainty stirred, an unexpected gesture from an elderly neighbor shifted the tide. He'd seen struggle in many forms and stood tall for what truly mattered. His words flowed like a welcome breeze through a crowded room, softening hardened hearts. "We must remember we're all connected, in joy and pain." As the day of the rescue dawned, the dog's fate intertwined with the future of Maplewood. With emotions boiling to the surface, the community assembled in unity, hearts racing, awaiting the moment when they could prove that courage, compassion, and resilience still thrived amid the long shadows of the past. But when a final challenge emerged, one that threatened to unravel everything they had built, Sarah could only wonder if, just maybe, hope truly could rise from the hidden steel graves of their lives. The sun rose slowly over Maplewood, casting a warm but piercing light that streamed through the trees, illuminating the faces of hopeful townsfolk gathered near the site of the old factory. Sarah stood at the front of the group, swallowing the lump in her throat as her heart raced with anticipation. Today was the day. Today, they would rescue the dog. Lily and Jake stood beside her, their little hands entwined with the energy of youth, unaware of the gravity of what lay ahead. They babbled excitedly, talking about what they would name the dog once they freed it. Their spirits were infectious, and despite the tension in the air, Sarah felt a flicker of hope within her own heart. "Are we ready?" Sarah asked, turning to the crowd. A chorus of murmurs responded, each voice filled with resolve. The elderly neighbor, Mr. Johnson, stepped forward, steadying his glasses as he looked from person to person. "Let us do this together," he said, his voice steady and firm. This dog relies on us today." The crowd filled with murmurs of agreement, bonding them further. They had planned this moment down to the last detail. But as they approached the steel grave, the weight of the task settled in. The old factory had been abandoned for years, its rusting corners concealing both memories and dangers. The hole was deeper than anyone had anticipated, and the dog's frightened whimpers echoed, tightening everyone's chest. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A nervous murmur spread through the crowd as Sarah noticed something glinting in the light, a piece of metal jutting out dangerously close to the edge of the grave, threatening to collapse under the pressure of too many bodies. Anxiety shot through her veins, and she turned to Jake and Lily, eyes wide with worry. "Stay back, kids," she instructed, her voice steady but low. "We have to be careful." Just as she said this, Tom, the factory owner, stepped forward, a formulaic bravado surfacing. "We can't let a simple rescue put us in danger. We can't afford unnecessary risks," he said sharply, his tone dripping with impatience. Sarah's heart sank. "Have we come all this way just to turn back?" But before she could respond, Mr. Johnson intervened. "Now hold on, Tom. We need to think about what's right. That dog deserves a chance at life, just like anyone else here." The old man's words seemed to pierce through the hardened shell around Tom's heart. The townsfolk exchanged worried glances, weighing the personal costs of their actions against the lives of others. It was more than a rescue, it was also a matter of community, of healing wounds that had festered for too long. "All right," Tom finally relented, his shoulders slumping ever so slightly. "But let us be smart about this." They began to cautiously work together to create a more stable area, laying down boards and using ropes, forming a makeshift barrier around the grave. Sarah felt a renewed sense of connection to those around her, empathy transforming fear into collective strength. As they lowered the harness, anticipation swelled in Sarah's chest. This was the moment they had all come for. They could hear the whimpering more clearly now, and with each passing second, it felt both hopeful and treacherous. "Just a little longer," Jake called out, his tiny voice filled with determination, mirroring the hearts of the townsfolk who stood behind him. And just as they felt the harness grip around the dog, the ground beneath them shuddered. Gasps erupted as everyone instinctively took a step back. The dog barked, a fierce sound mingled with fear, and in that moment, a loud crack rang out as the unstable metal chain snapped, sending the harness tumbling back. "Look out!" Sarah screamed just as she pulled her children closer. The terrain shifted dangerously, and as chaos unfurled, she realized this was not just a rescue, it was a battle for their resilience as a community. With the ground trembling underfoot, would they overcome this final hurdle together? Or would their dreams, like the dog trapped below, be crushed by doubt and fear? The ground trembled, and the air thickened with anxiety. Sarah's heart raced like a drum, a relentless echo of her fear and determination. She wrapped her arms tighter around Jake and Lily, shielding them from the chaos unfolding around them. The crowd, moments ago united in purpose, was now thrown into disarray. Faces turned pale with shock as the harness fell away, landing with a thud that seemed to resonate through their collective consciousness. "Quick! We need to stabilize the edge," Tom shouted, his voice rising above the clamor. Instinct took over as the townsfolk sprang into action. Mr. Johnson was quick to help, his frail frame surprisingly steady as he moved to grab more boards from their makeshift supply. Together, they forged a barrier, a human chain woven with hope, fear, and shared purpose. Sarah felt the iron grip of worry around her heart, but with Jake's tiny hand in hers, she found strength. "We can't stop now. We have to keep the ground from caving in," she said, her voice resolved. All around her, she saw others rallying. Neighbors who had once passed each other with only nods and smiles were now working side by side, sweating and straining, united by their mission. The whimpering below turned frantic, and it pierced through the thick tension, igniting a fire of urgency in Sarah. A surge of adrenaline flowed through her as she shouted, "We need more ropes." "Who has some? We can lift it if we can just keep it stable." A voice from the crowd called out, "I have some from my garage." And within moments, a length of rope was thrown down into their makeshift camp. Kneeling at the edge, Sarah and Tom tied off the harness, knots tightening like pulsating hearts, their desperation blending into a singular focus. The whispered prayers for the dog's safety mingled with the sound of boards creaking, metal clanking, and the palpable hum of anxiety that buzzed between them. "On three," Tom declared. "1, 2, 3. With all their might, they pulled. The rope strained against the weight of the dog, and Sarah's muscles burned with effort. As the dog emerged inch by inch, hope blossomed like dawn breaking through the night. But just as they thought they were gaining ground, the earth shifted again. An ominous crackling noise echoed through the air, and gasps fell around them like leaves in autumn. "Pull harder," Sarah shouted, her voice threaded with rising panic. Yet instead, a surge of gravity yanked the dog deeper. The raw, tortured noise erupted once more from the animal, a sound that was both primal and heartbreaking. The townspeople leaned in, whispering words of encouragement, their voices a steady chorus against the fear. "Come on, sweetheart. Just a little longer." Lily squealed, her innocent voice cutting through the tension like a dagger of resolve, and it galvanized Sarah. With renewed instinct, she shifted her focus to the others around her. "We can't give up. We're doing this together." As they pulled violently, the edges buckled dangerously close. Moments felt like hours. Then, through the chaos, a flash of brown and white emerged, ears back and eyes wide with fear but alive. Trembling paws finally made their way off the ground, and a mix of cheers and sobs broke free from the crowd as they craned their necks, desperate to see. But just as the dog broke through, there was a violent shake, and the earth quaked once more, sending Sarah reeling backward, her arms flailing. She managed to steady herself, but the horror flashed through her mind. Would they lose the precious creature right after finding it? "Sarah!" Jake cried, his voice high and shrill. "Help!" Looking down, she saw the ground beneath her shift perilously. The rescue was far from over. In that moment, she realized that the fate of not just the dog, but the very fabric of their community, was hanging in the balance. With a deep breath, her heart pounding, she needed to make a choice. Would she risk it all, diving headlong into the chaos for the sake of a life that depended on them? As she grasped the urgency of the situation, one thing became painfully clear. Rescue missions were rarely guaranteed happily ever afters. But sometimes, taking the leap of faith could lead to unimaginable bonds and newfound hope. What if the ground crumbled beneath them before they could finish what they started? Would they find the strength in their unity when faced with panic? Sarah's heart pounded as she scanned the chaos around her, the crowd blurring into a sea of anxious faces. Every second felt suspended, a fragile moment straining under the weight of potential disaster. The noise of panic blended with desperate encouragement from the townsfolk, yet all she could think of was Jake and Lily, their trust in her unwavering. "Stay back!" She called out to the children, her voice cutting through the din. She couldn't let them be near the crumbling edge. Fear gripped her stomach, twisting it into knots. She took a deep breath, forcing calm into her breathing. They needed her focus now more than ever. Tom steadied himself beside her, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Sarah, we need to pull together. We can't let this thing go." "Yes, let us do it," she replied, her voice resolute despite the tremor underneath. The dog's whimpers haunted her thoughts, each sound a reminder of the urgency of their task. Firming her grip on the rope, she looked into the eyes of those around her, an unspoken agreement passing between them like a spark kindling a flame. "On my count," shouted Tom, and everyone gathered their strength. The world faded until it was just them, the rope, and the life they were trying to save. 1, 2, 3. With a furious yank, they pulled. It felt like they were dragging a heavy weight against the very fabric of the earth itself. A grunt echoed from someone in the line, but no one stopped. Around them, hands gripped the ropes tighter, faces contorted in strain, yet determined. Suddenly, another tremor rocked the ground. Sarah's heart sank as she felt the earth shudder beneath her feet. "Hold on. We can't let go," she yelled, panic threatening the edges of her voice. The crowd encircling the edge wobbled as the ground cracked like a fragile eggshell. From below, the dog emerged a little further, its body coated in dirt, eyes wide, and breathing heavily. The sight spurred Sarah on, and she felt a renewed surge of energy flow through her. She could do this. They could do this. Keep pulling, she urged, gripping the rope with all her strength. The dog, sensing hope, began to claw its way upward. With every inch they pulled, support surged from those around her, a shared heartbeat of hope tethered them together. Then, just as the dog broke through the edge, another violent shake twisted the ground. Sarah stumbled but caught herself, barely. No. Not now. The fear seemed to pulse through her veins. Little Jake's eyes shimmered with terror, but in a surprising move, he reached past Sarah, grabbing the rope. I can help. Jake, no, Sarah started, but it was too late. The pure determination on his face was enough to silence her doubts. She realized in that moment that fear could either paralyze or propel them forward. Okay. Pull. She shouted, her voice fierce and unwavering. With every ounce of collective strength, they heaved again, and somehow by sheer force of will and undeniable love they felt a shift. The dog, freed from the abyss, hurled itself forward, landing atop the solid ground, panting heavily but alive. The crowd erupted, joy breaking like waves against the shore. People clapped, cries of relief mingling with gratitude. But then there was silence as another tremor shook the earth, daunting and fierce. Sarah's heart dropped. The ground was still shifting, still dangerous, and now, a new realization hit hard. Everyone, back! She yelled, her voice slicing through the air to redirect the cheers into a cautionary alert. We need to move. In that instant, Sarah saw the panic reflected in the children's eyes, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. The ground may not have been finished with them yet. What if this was just the beginning of another fight, one that could endanger everyone involved? Fear ricocheted within her, but from deep down, a flicker of resolve ignited. This wasn't about just saving a dog anymore. It was about their community, standing tall against whatever came next. But what awaited them just below the surface? What unseen horrors were creeping closer, waiting for them to uncover? As Sarah urged the crowd to retreat, her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They had saved the dog, but the ground under their feet was still unstable. She quickly scanned the area, assessing the risk to the children and the townsfolk. The panic that hung in the air was palpable. Parents held their little ones close, eyes wide with fear, while others seemed frozen, unsure of what action to take next. Tom! Gather everyone by the trees! She shouted, pointing toward the thick canopy a safe distance away. We need to move now. She had no time to waste. Every second counted as the tremors continued, each one more unsettling than the last. Tom rushed to her side, his face a mix of determination and anxiety. What if there's a bigger quake coming? How do we know this won't happen again? His voice trembled, and Sarah could see the worry etched deeply in his features. We can't think that way. We have to believe we can keep everyone safe. She replied, gripping his arm briefly for reassurance. Just help me get them moving. She quickly shouted out directions, her voice cutting through the chaos, guiding parents and children toward safety. The crowd began to shift, forming a line as they obeyed her orders. Sarah could feel the grounding pulse of their unity, each step a reminder that they were stronger together. Just as the last group made it to the safety of the trees, another violent tremor rocked the ground. This time, it felt like the earth itself was groaning, protesting against the chaos above. Sarah stumbled, barely managing to catch herself against a sturdy trunk. All around, gasps and cries erupted in a chorus of dread. Keep moving! She yelled, forcing herself to stay calm despite the tightening knot in her stomach. But even as she spoke, her mind raced. What if this was just the beginning? What if there was something lurking beneath, something they hadn't prepared for? Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered her thoughts. Sarah whipped her head in the direction of the sound, her heart freezing. A woman had tripped and fallen, her ankle twisted at an odd angle as she sprawled on the ground. "Mom!" A girl's voice wailed, rushing back toward the woman despite the danger. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, her instincts kicking in. Without thinking, she dashed toward them, her heart pounding louder than the chaos surrounding her. She couldn't let panic take over, they needed to be a beacon of hope, to show the community they could survive this, together. As she reached the woman, she knelt down, reaching for her hand. "You're going to be okay, I promise," Sarah said, forcing a smile even as fear gnawed at her. Her gaze flickered back to the massive crowd, reminding her of the responsibility resting on her shoulders. The woman winced, but she looked into Sarah's eyes, finding solace amidst the storm. I can't get up," she said, trembling. "Tom!" Sarah called, her voice unwavering amid rising dread. "I need help. We've got to get her to the trees." Tom was beside her in an instant, a determined fire kindling in his eyes. Together, they lifted the woman, the girl screaming reminders of how valuable her mother was, of the love that coursed through this moment as they navigated the treacherous ground. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air, and dust billowed up from the ground. Sarah's heart lurched, a crack was widening, threatening to swallow the earth beneath them. "Move! Now!" she shouted, panic rising like a tide. They pushed through the chaos, fear propelling them as they made their way toward the trees. But as they drew near, Sarah felt a pull and instinct to return. There was something still down below, something they hadn't yet confronted. "What am I sensing?" she muttered to herself, glancing back at the crack. It was almost as if it were speaking to her, beckoning her closer despite the danger. What hidden truths were waiting beneath this fractured ground, and how would they uncover them? The fear within the crowd seemed to echo the tremors of the earth. Sarah's heart pounded in rhythm with the chaos around her as she and Tom carried the injured woman. Desperation fueled their every step. The girl, still calling for her mom, twisted Sarah's heart into knots. She fought the urge to look back, to reassure the little girl as they hurried into the safety of the trees. "Just a bit further." Tom grunted, sweat trickling down his brow. Sarah could see the determination etched on his face, even as worry flickered in his eyes. Finally, they reached the cluster of trees, their canopies offering a glimmer of solace against the oncoming storm. They set the woman down, and Sarah knelt beside her, checking her ankle. It was swollen, throbbing visibly, but nothing seemed broken. Relief washed over her as she turned to the girl. "Listen," Sarah said gently, kneeling in front of her, "your mom is going to be okay. We're all safe here. Just breathe with me." She took in a deep breath, encouraging the girl to follow her lead. After a moment, the girl finally nodded, her panic slowly dissipating. Tom joined Sarah, his eyes scanning their surroundings as he spoke. "We can't stay here for long. If the ground keeps shaking, this might not be safe either." Just then, a low rumble echoed in the distance. The trees shook slightly, leaves fluttering to the ground. The collective gasp from the crowd made Sarah's stomach twist again. This wasn't over. "Not yet. We need to find higher ground," she said. "Somewhere we can see what's happening and maybe, just maybe, get a sense of when it's safe to move. But we must stick together." The parents nodded, still clutching their children. Together, they began to gather their strength, forming a line led by Sarah and Tom. They moved along the edge of the clearing, all eyes darting between the shaking earth and one another, searching for reassurance. Ahead, a small hillside loomed. It didn't seem steep, but it was above them, offering a vantage point that could prove vital. "Let us head up there," Sarah directed, her voice steady. "But stay close." As they climbed, Sarah's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The crack in the earth still loomed large in her mind, whispering promises of hidden secrets waiting to be revealed. What if this wasn't just an earthquake? What if there was more beneath their feet, something connected to the very fabric of their lives? Just as they reached the top of the hill, another shockwave hit. This time, it felt different, more intense, more driven. Sweat beaded on the brows of everyone as they scrambled to maintain their footing. Sarah gripped a nearby tree for support, her eyes scanning the horizon. But then she caught sight of something, a glimmer, a flash of movement peeking through the dust. It flickered near the fissure where the ground had broken. Breath catching in her throat, Sarah squinted. Was that a collar? The realization gripped her. Could it be the dog from earlier, the one they had saved? Everyone, stay here, she commanded, battling the urge to race toward the crack. Tom, I need you to hold this spot. I'll be right back. Wait, what if Tom began, but she was already moving, her heart pounding with both excitement and dread. Fear gripped her as she approached the edge of the crack, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. Yet, she felt that pull, an overwhelming need to uncover the truth hidden in the earth. Just a little closer, she whispered to herself. What would she find down there? She stepped closer again, her heart racing fiercely. What truth awaited her just out of sight? Was it a rescue, or something far more threatening? As Sarah leaned over the crack, the chaos around her faded. The tremors of the earth felt distant, like a pulsing heartbeat beneath her feet. All she could focus on was the rustling movement she had seen. The collar sparkled in the dust and sunlight, painting a picture that sent her thoughts racing. Could it really be the dog they had rescued earlier? A chill brushed her skin, and every instinct screamed at her to stop, to retreat back to safety. But curiosity won the battle. It ignited a fire within her. I have to know, she murmured to herself. She edged closer, the jagged fissure yawning open beneath her like a dark secret waiting to be uncovered. Glaring into the crack, she squinted harder at the flashes of movement. Hello? The word slipped from her lips, almost like a prayer. Silence followed her call, only interrupted by the low whisper of the wind through the trees. Stay safe, please, she added softly, a desperate wish that resonated in her heart. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining the warmth of the dog's body against hers, the wagging tail that had brought so much joy. A sharp shudder ran through her as another tremor threatened to upend her balance. Sarah! Tom's voice cracked through the distant noise, filled with alarm. She could feel the growing unease rippling through the small group waiting behind her. Every second stretched on, and Sarah felt the weight of their anticipation bearing down on her. She turned slightly, her heart pounding, torn between the growing concern for her friends and the magnetic pull of discovery. I have to check, Tom. The collar could mean he's in there. Her voice was resolute, but her heart raced with anxiety. What if she looked and found something terrible? Something she couldn't handle? Yet, what if he was hurt and alone? She couldn't bear the thought of another innocent creature in distress. Be careful. We'll be right here. He called out, his voice thick with worry. His eyes held hers for a moment, a silent plea to stay safe, to stay as Sarah, the one who always returned home. Taking a deep breath, Sarah shifted, cautiously peering deeper into the crack. The dust settled, and she could see movement shadows skirting on the edges. Come on, dog, it's okay, she whispered, her voice wrapped in warmth and encouragement. And then she caught sight of it, a small, scared figure emerging from the shadows. It was the dog, trembling but alive, his collar glistening amidst the grime. Relief surged through her, igniting a spark of hope. Hey there, buddy. I've got you. She crouched down, extending a hand, though the space was narrow. The dog whimpered, inching closer but still hesitant. She could see every detail now, his matted fur, the fearful gleam in his eyes. But then an urgent rumbling echoed beneath her. The ground shifted violently, splintering new cracks, and a rush of air blasted against her. Panic rose like bile in her throat. She couldn't lose him, not now. Sarah! Tom shouted, panic lacing his tone. Back away. The world around her disintegrated into chaos as the fissure widened. She felt the ground giving way beneath her feet, and for a moment, time slowed. Her heart betrayed her, racing against the instinct to flee, to escape. But shifting her focus back to the dog brought clarity. Just a little closer, she urged fiercely, stretching out her hand. I'm not leaving you. What would she have to do to save him? In this moment of pure determination, would she risk everything to pull the pup close, or would they both be consumed by the earth? As the ground trembled beneath her, the question loomed larger than ever: would she be the one to pull them both from the depths, or would this moment seal their fate forever? The ground shook again, more violently this time, and Sarah felt the fear clutching at her throat. It was as if the earth itself was protesting against her decision. All she could hear was the chaos around her, her friends shouting, but the sound faded into a mere background hum as she focused solely on the small, trembling creature before her. "Please, just a little closer," she whispered, reaching further, her fingers brushing the rough texture of the collar. The dog's eyes were wide, filled with disbelief. He wanted to trust her but seemed uncertain. She could see the fight in him, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness surrounding them. A surge of determination pulsed through her heart. How could she let fear own her in this moment? There was strength in love, and it was that love that propelled her further, grounding her amidst the uncertainty. "I won't hurt you." She felt the earth tremor beneath her once more, a violent reminder of the danger looming over them. "Trust me," she cried out, her voice breaking free from her chest. The dog hesitated, glancing back into the deeper shadows, then locked eyes with her. It was as if they momentarily understood each other, a shared bond of survival. With one final effort, the dog stepped forward, inching closer until he was just within reach. Sarah stretched out her arm, her heart pounding louder with every passing moment. "That's it. Just a little bit more." Just then, a loud crack echoed from beneath her. The ground groaned ominously as new fissures erupted around her feet like jagged teeth, urging her to retreat. But she wouldn't. "Come on," she shouted, fear igniting her voice. "You can do it." With a burst of bravery, the dog lunged forward. Sarah grasped the collar firmly, her fingers tangling briefly in the matted fur. Time slowed as she yanked him towards her, feeling his small frame fit securely against her hands. The relief was electrifying, but it was short-lived. The ground beneath her feet shifted again, threatening collapse. A powerful gust pressed against her, pushing her backward. "Tom! Help!" she yelled, scrambling to find her footing while still clutching the dog against her chest. In that moment, Tom appeared at her side, his expression a mixture of terror and determination. He reached out, locking his grip around her waist. "I've got you." His voice was steady, a lifeline amidst the chaos. Together, Tom and Sarah retreated, inching away from the crack still gaping before them. The dog quivered in her arms, his eyes wide with confusion but slowly starting to trust. "You're safe now," she whispered, brushing a thumb down his damp fur, feeling the tremors of energy pulse through him as he leaned against her. Finally managing to step back, the group formed a semicircle, their expressions worn but filled with relief as they assessed what had just unfolded. Sarah felt the dog's warmth seep into her, a comforting reassurance against the surreal aftermath. But even in this moment of victory, doubt flickered. What lay beyond the crack now? Would they unearth even more secrets buried beneath? As she looked down into the yawning gap that had almost claimed them, her heart thudded with a mix of dread and curiosity. "Is everyone okay?" Tom asked, scanning the group. Each face was filled with concern but reflected a shared bravery. "I think so," Sarah replied, her voice still shaky. But the dog in her arms began to settle, snuggling closer, and a wave of compassion washed over her. "But we have to figure out what that was." The revelation pressed on her, like a weight she couldn't ignore. What else was hidden beneath the surface? Suddenly, she felt that the dog was just the beginning of their journey. As they stepped back cautiously, the tremor of the ground beneath their feet muttered a warning. What secrets still echoed in the darkness below? Would they awaken something worse if they dug deeper? Sarah's heart raced as she stood there, cradling the dog in her arms. The ground trembled beneath her, and the memories of moments past flickered in and out of her mind like distant stars. She could still feel the dog's rapid heartbeat against her chest, mirroring her own fear and exhilaration. "Let us move," Tom urged, still gripping her waist. The urgency in his voice pulled her back from her swirling thoughts. They had to get away from the crack in the earth, but where could they go? The familiar woods now felt like a maze, the shadows cast by the trees looming closer, almost suffocating in their intensity. With shaky legs, Sarah pivoted to follow Tom. The dog stirred, looking up at her as if sensing her anxiety. "You're okay, buddy," she whispered, attempting to project calmness she didn't feel. His coat was damp with fear, and she could sense the bond forming. This small creature would not just be a rescue, he was becoming part of their story. The group moved cautiously, their footsteps crunching on the leaves scattered across the ground. Each tremor that clawed at the earth beneath them sent thoughts racing through Sarah's mind. What had caused the ground to shake? Was it just an earthquake, or had they stumbled upon something much darker? She felt her companion's anxiety echoing around her, punctuated by their whispers. "What if it happens again?" a girl to her right asked, her voice shaking almost as much as her hands. "We have to stick together," Tom replied, his voice firm despite the uncertainty in their surroundings. The determination in his tone settled some of the tension that had started to seep into the group. Then Sarah caught sight of something amongst the uneven terrain. Was a clearing, one where the trees parted slightly, allowing a shaft of sunlight to touch the ground like a warm embrace. "This way," she called out, motioning for everyone to follow. They stepped into the open area, and for a moment, the chaos faded. The light felt soothing against her skin, a brief sanctuary amidst the turmoil. Sarah knelt, bringing the dog closer to her. "What should we name you?" she asked softly, looking into his expressive eyes. "How about Rusty? Since you're so brave?" A low whine escaped him, and she chuckled lightly. As they sat to catch their breath, Sarah finally took stock of her friends. Each face was drawn tight with concern. "We need to find a way to understand what's going on," she stated, her voice even but firm. "We can't just walk away." Tom nodded. "You're right. If there's something down there," he trailed off, glancing back toward the crack that still loomed ominously behind them, a dark reminder of what they had barely escaped. But as the group gathered to discuss their next steps, Rusty's sudden bark caught everyone off guard. He was standing, alert and facing the tree-line, ears perked up. Sarah's heart raced. What was he sensing? "Did you hear that?" one of her friends said, whispering now, a chill running through the air. "Yeah," Tom replied, eyes narrowing. "We should go check it out." The dog in Sarah's arms tensed, muscles quivering as he shifted against her. She hesitated, the weight of her decision heavy upon her. Did they follow Rusty's instincts into an even darker unknown? With a glance that sought strength in her friend's eyes, Sarah made her choice. "We owe it to him and to whatever else is down there. Let us see what's really going on." As they ventured toward the noise, her heart pounded with every step. She felt the pull of courage rise within her again, and yet threads of uncertainty curled around her thoughts. What truth awaited them, lurking just beyond their reach? Something shifted in the shadows, a flicker of movement. Sarah's breath caught. What had they awakened? As Sarah led the group towards the source of the sound, courage surged through her veins, powering her footsteps down the narrow path beside the trees. The sun filtered through the leaves like gentle music, a beautiful contrast to the urgency pulling them forward. Rusty, the dog named after his bravery, trotted to the front, seemingly in tune with the environment, every fiber of his being attuned to the shifting energies surrounding them. "Stay alert," she whispered to her companions, glancing back to Tom. His face was set in determination, a shared commitment knitting them tightly together. Each person in the group had transformed during this ordeal, from hesitant bystanders to resolute neighbors united by a cause greater than themselves. As they moved further in, the soft sounds of the forest began to fade, replaced by a new, haunting noise, deep, echoing growls mingled with rustling. The air thickened with the sense of anticipation, and Sarah felt every heartbeat echoing in her chest. She directed her attention to Rusty, whose nose quivered with instinct. What was drawing him in? "Do you think there's more?" someone asked, fear threading through their voice. It was the same girl who had questioned the group earlier, and Sarah could feel the collective uncertainty tensioning the air around them like a taut wire. "We can't turn back now," Tom replied, his gaze glinting with fierce resolve. If there is something here, we need to face it together. As they approached the clearing, a darker challenge emerged, glinting beneath the shadows. The ground had crumbled, revealing something buried deep, a hidden trap, littered with various pieces of metal and debris. It felt like a forgotten tomb, whispering tales of the past, once filled with life and now reduced to echoes of despair. Out of the shadows, a figure started to emerge, a creature that looked like it had once been part of the vibrant town of Maplewood. It was another dog, thin and frightened, its eyes deep wells of sorrow. Sarah's heart clenched. This dog was trapped in a twisted mess of metal, fighting for freedom like Rusty had been just moments ago. The urgency surged through the group again. Sarah could feel the values of her friends shining, the instinct to act overwhelming the fear threatening to paralyze them. We can help him, she called out, her voice rolling through the clearing with fire and hope. Let us do this, Tom shouted, breaking the group from their hesitant stasis. They all instinctively formed into a human chain, moving toward the trapped animal, their hands reaching for the tangled mess of metal. As they carefully began to cut away the metal with anything they could scrounge, a pocket knife here, a jagged piece of metal there, Sarah caught Rusty's gaze. He was observing carefully, as if sensing that the effort they were making was not for naught. Love flowed between them like an unbreakable thread, a testament to their connection. The dog began to whimper, gently nudging against them as they freed him piece by piece. Then, finally, with one last heave, the last metal piece was pushed aside, and the trapped dog bolted forward, panting and trembling. The crowd erupted into relieved cheers, a beautiful harmony of hope spinning through the air. Welcome home, someone shouted. Sarah laughed, tears streaming down her face as she crouched low. The two dogs sniffed each other cautiously, a moment of shared understanding, as they both knew what it was like to be alone and afraid. And just like that, Maplewood started to transform before them. People who had once walked past each other, hearts burdened with their own lives, stood together wrapped in warmth and unity. They were a patchwork of lives woven tight by love, resilience, and the joy that comes from connection. As the sun began to set, a golden glow washed over the town. It illuminated the faces of the townsfolk, faces no longer stained with sorrow but filled with the light of renewed purpose. They gathered together, Rusty and his newfound friend bouncing between their legs as they laughed, a symphony of voices echoing through the trees as they began to discuss building a new shelter for animals and ensuring the safety of the town. In that moment, Sarah felt a profound sense of healing wash over her. The shadows of her past began to lighten as she recognized that their journey didn't end with physical rescues. It was about the healing that came from connection, courage, and a community reclaiming its heart. Her heart swelled with hope, not just for herself, but for everyone, knowing they could rise from the depths of despair and rebuild something beautiful. As night fell, the stars blinked down at Maplewood, twinkling like promises of brighter tomorrows. The group gathered, sharing stories and laughter, reminding each other of the power of compassion. It was clear now that the town would never again be just a place on a map. It was a community bound by love, resilience, and a shared belief that hope could rise from the hidden steel graves of their lives. So much had changed, but not just for the dogs or the community. It transformed them all into something greater than they dared to imagine together. And in that warmth, they all knew for certain, they would stand together as one, unbreakable, against whatever darkness might threaten to come next. So, what are you waiting for? This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.